So we're finally here, the last part. Time to bring things up to date. Through telling the story of GTA, we've almost had to map out a whole genre, a style of play that GTA originated, popularised, broke the mould in, dominated, and now, at this stage, well, the peloton was actually starting to catch up a little. Not necessarily in terms of sales, where GTA remained kin, but certainly in terms of critical acclaim. We have of course already covered GTA 4, warts and all, but we didn't go into the immediate aftermath so much. What of GTA's competitors? The game that many thought was just going to be a placeholder, something that would be totally forgotten after GTA 4's arrival. Volition dropped Saints Row 2 only a few months after 4's release in 2008. It may not have had the sales to match the monolith, but it was a fantastic game. All that was good about the first, but hitched up several notches and vastly improved, cutting a new path. Some people, including yours truly, preferred the cheaper, more juvenile supervillain antics of Saints Row 2 to the gritty drama of GTA 4. The series would kick on from there too, evolving to somewhere in between realism and the fantasy world that games like Crackdown had created, and ultimately going beyond that, a continued trendsetter in the genre, with a sandbox and ideas that GTA just wouldn't do. Whenever you thought that Saints Row had gone as far as it could, suddenly the line would move several miles further down the road. Fans of just having a place to screw around and do ridiculous superhuman things in were also well served by the likes of Infamous, Prototype, and in particular for me, Square Enix's absolutely riotous Just Cause 2, a sequel to what had previously been a fairly empty early 360 sandbox game that pushed the series to a whole new level. Even better still, Volition produced Red Faction Guerrilla, a sandbox game set on Mars, filled with sledgehammers, demolition, and being a space asshole. One of the most underrated and quietly brilliant games of the whole generation. As for the more serious sort of sandbox game, well, we've already covered Sleeping Dogs, a sprawling epic set in Hong Kong filled with tributes to heroic bloodshed films, the evolution of what once, a long time ago, was true crime. Older standbys also continued to thrive somewhat, like Mafia 2, even as others like the Crackdown series and The Godfather fell by the wayside. Other more established series also took sandbox elements now and made them their own, the likes of Far Cry 3 or Tomb Raider doing a pretty damn good job of that, giving players tons of activities to do while still providing solid missions and stories. Even Driver came in from the cold, a revival of the franchise producing the warmly received Driver San Francisco, a mix of sandbox action and, well, driving. And yes, there was the odd rather limp and empty failure, like Ubisoft's Watch Dogs. The sandbox genre, over 10 years after Grand Theft Auto 3 had made it the new coolest thing in gaming, was still going very strong indeed, and now it was packed full of titles. That's not to say that Rockstar were just sitting on their laurels though. After all, they had plenty of teams aside from their folks in Edinburgh. And their San Diego team, the one that we'd previously seen showing off Rockstar's next-gen engines with a game of table tennis, would just so happen to make the greatest sandbox game ever made. It is a shame that at this point we don't get to fully cover Red Dead Redemption. It is a shame that due to both the nature of the game and how it is highly unlikely to ever be ported anywhere, and the continued fading out of the 360 generation, fewer and fewer people will play Red Dead Redemption. It was in many ways exactly what Rockstar North had wanted to do with GTA 4, a game that took video game storytelling to a whole new level of complexity, nuance and maturity, with a character who was, without a shadow of a doubt, in control of you. Red Dead Redemption is a perfect game, and one that has barely been matched since, certainly not in its genre. But alas, we're not covering it. At least not yet. For now we have to stick to the story, and we can at least say that Rockstar was still right at the front, regardless of the long gap from one GTA to another. It has often been said that a new GTA game can represent two things, the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end. That was somewhat true in the PS2 era, where GTA 3 represented the moment when that generation really kicked off into the stratosphere, but while San Andreas represented the point where it wasn't going to be possible to do much more in the generation, there was still plenty of great stuff to come. It was sort of true with GTA 4 too, so long as you believed what the hype machine told you, despite all the great games that there had been before the series' arrival. but perhaps it would be true of GTA 5. It was first announced in October 2011, just as details were starting to leak about the new Microsoft and Sony consoles, and it would be released on the 17th of September 2013, a mere 2 months before the release of both the PS4 and the Xbox One. It was indeed a well-timed goodbye to what had been a somewhat interesting generation. Now we're jumping the gun a little though. Let's just go back to those first announcements and trailers, the beginning of 2 years worth of hype. It's intriguing to watch GTA 5's announcement and compare it to GTA 4's. It's a wholly different beast. Not just in that it's going to be Los Santos, but in the whole makeup of everything. The focus is more on the activities that are here. Look, planes are back, countryside is back, we can play golf, we can go parachute jump again. All things that you weren't able to do in vanilla GTA 4 basically. A narty and character driven trailer this is not. The character in focus is even a bit of a throwback. You don't know his name yet, but he looks like an older Italian-American mobster type dude. Squint a little in one shot of the trailer and you see someone with jeans and a white tank top running around. CJ? Is that you? Maybe not. Still, this is the first trailer for a GTA game that for me isn't trying to introduce anything brand new. It almost feels like a bit of a reaction to GTA 4 in fact. All the stuff that you used to like in the series, it's back. And naturally the hype train started moving immediately. Later trailers give us more of an impression of the characters and of the bank robbing heist type stuff that we're going to be getting into, but there's no doubt that the Philip Glass CD has been left firmly on the shelf this time around, replaced by the soothing, reassuringly classic sounds of Ogden's Nut Gone Flake by the Small Faces. As the game got closer to touchdown, the usual frothing began, more and more hype. The release itself was huge, even by GTA standards. In the first 24 hours, the game had made over $800 million. To date, over 45 million copies of the game have shipped. So yeah, believe it or not, it's still successful. GTA isn't showing any signs of slowing down, that's clear enough, but enough about sales and all that. It's the least surprising part of the video. Let's dive on in. GTA 5's start is actually the most compelling in the history of the series, probably. You get a bank robbery from a good few years ago, and you largely play as the guy from the trailer, who we find out is called Michael, and naturally, everything gets ballsed up. Cops and compatriots die, getaway cars get fucked, and Michael himself ends up gutshot and presumably dead. They have a funeral and everything, which he so happens to be watching. We catch up with him at a therapist's office years later in Santos, spewing about his shitty family life and what he used to be. So far so Sopranos, you know? But then, surprisingly, after a brief conversation with two folks who want to know where something is, everything switches and you play as one of those two folks, taking cars out for a spin. And so introduces the big, totally new thing about GTA 5, multiple characters. You only stick with this guy, whose name is Franklin, alone for a little bit, and once his path properly intertwines with Michael's, you can switch between them on the fly. You can even switch between them during missions, rather than just out in the world itself. And a bit later on they're joined by Trevor, one of Michael's old associates, and yeah, a somewhat interesting guy, to say the least. We'll get into the characters shortly, but yeah, this is certainly a different step. It's a bit of an evolution from the 3 parts of GTA 4 that made up one big, occasionally interlocking series of stories. This time, 3 characters are going to be even tighter with each other, so why not let you play as all 3 of them? We'll get into the intricacies of these constant switches in a while, but we kinda have to dive into our 3 glorious anti-hero protagonists. It seems natural to start with Michael DeSanta. He was, after all, a guy who looked like he was going to be the main character. He's old, fat, and when you see him, he's retired. He faked his own death, made out with a ton of money, and has his own place in Vinewood. His wife spends a lot of time practicing with her tennis coach on their own court, his son spends all day smoking weed and playing video games, his daughter likes to shout at everyone, and he likes to spend most of the day drinking by the pool. It's a life, isn't it? Franklin Clinton, on the other hand, runs deeper in Los Santos, in a semi-legit kind of way, repossessing cars from people who haven't made their payments, essentially selling folks' cars and robbing them back again, with his friend Lamar. He's ambitious and wants to get paid, ideally without pissing off any ballers or vagos along the way. Yeah, they're still around. One repo job takes Franklin to Michael's house, to Michael's son's car, to Michael's 45 pressed against his cheek in the back seat, and ultimately to a quick drive through his boss's front window. Bored and pissed off with his family life, Michael seems to find something in Franklin that pokes the fire back up in his vein and makes him want to do more than get drunk and play tennis all day. And likewise, Franklin sees Michael as someone he can learn a lot from, perhaps his ticket out of the streets, away from shitty jobs and closer to the money. They make for a nice couple. After pissing off a Mexican crime boss to the point of owing him money, Michael hooks back up with his old associate, Lester, a somewhat skeevy sort of guy who likes watching people, and he and Franklin start robbing shit again. Which finally introduces us to the third character, Trevor Phillips, who used to be a part of Michael's crew all those years ago and now runs a meth and guns racket in Sandy Shores, one of the main parts of San Andreas' twisted outback, somewhat based on real-life former holiday resorts like Salton City. While Trevor's busy conducting business, one signature phrase in particular seems to set everything off and makes him aware of Michael's continued existence. Trevor. Of course, we know that GTA has an enduring history of sociopaths, those who don't talk much, those who want to take over, those who are looking for someone. Roll them all up into a ball and fill them full of PSP, and they still wouldn't even be a patch on Trevor. His introduction alone might possibly make him the most twisted and outrageous creation in the history of the series. Remember Johnny? You know, from The Lost and Damned? Well, he and the Lost MC moved to Trevor's home of Blaine County, and they hooked up. And this is what happens when Johnny just so happens to cheek Trevor a little.
Fucking shit! Cunt! 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 Who the fuck are you speaking to?
Literally, Trevor's first mission involves the brutal killing of a fellow GTA protagonist, and all of his friends, and his girlfriend, and his entire motorcycle club that you spent hours with in another game, and then laughing about it. Oh boy, Trevor. If you come to GTA for the psychopaths, then look no further than Trevor Phillips, quite possibly the most fun creation in the entire series history. And so eventually we get all three of these guys together, all doing their own thing and coming together for business purposes. Even if one essentially despises the other for once being his best friend and running him off with all the cash, that other hates the one too and doesn't want him anywhere near his family, and there's another who so happens to be caught up in this entire shitstorm. What do they actually represent? It's funny really, we've talked so much about GTA reaching out to different sources of inspiration, whether it's Scarface or Rampart or The Sopranos or Sons of Anarchy or whatever. GTA 5 is a little different in this regard. Its main influence is, well, Grand Theft Auto. The three characters represent different sides of GTA and GTA's protagonists. Michael represents the success, the lifestyle, the nigh on 20 years of being at the top and what it can do to you. Make you fat, basically. Trevor, in all his glory, is the violence. He goes further in this regard than any other GTA protagonist ever. He's the player's urge to just go out and commit atrocities presented in full. He's the sandbox open world part. Franklin basically acts as the pivot. He's actually the closest to being the main character, because he is essentially the closest to being a typical GTA protagonist. He represents the ambition, and he has by far the biggest of the character arcs. These three in terms of characters take just about the whole of the game. GTA 5 has a couple of good supporting characters, like the aforementioned Lester and Franklin's friend and running buddy, Lamar Davis, but the game is mainly about the three protagonists doing stuff for each other. And don't think for a second that GTA 5 has three characters because none of them could handle the game entirely on their own. They all could, easily, especially Trevor. It just makes more sense to have you actually play the game out as all three on the fly. Another notable change in this regard is how missions are taken. On the map, a lot of the missions are only signified by the protagonist's initial, not the initial of whoever you're going to end up one in with or one in for. So who knows who you're going to be one in with? This makes the game a bit more linear, but it does make a lot more narrative sense. It removes the age-old issue of leaving one strand of missions right to the last minute, constantly having to tie up loose ends before you're allowed to really move forward with the story. The game handles these characters absolutely brilliantly. As mentioned, you can switch between them just about whenever, but when you switch you'll find said character in a car, or finishing off a smoke or whatever. They won't just be in the exact same place they were when you were last controlling them. It's small but smart, and it makes the game flow. And as you might expect, switches to Trevor and his antics are usually pretty damn interesting. You also get, finally, near seamless transition from the open world into a mission. No loading title card, no having to wait for a specific time. It's all swiftly taken care of with a time lapse and switch into the cutscene. This is a result of nearly 15 years of graft, and it works so damn well. With GTA 5, Rockstar susses out a lot of the issues they've had in the past with bringing a big open world and a complex narrative together, and in this department it becomes a supreme well-oiled machine. Mind you, it's not as if GTA 5's story is particularly grand or anything. I think you might have figured that out. It's mostly all quite self-referential, as mentioned. It's a dark tale to be sure, but the game doesn't really want to be a huge epic. Mainly everything just revolves around the heists, more big tributes to the likes of Heat or Inside Man or Ocean's 11 or any other heist movie you'd care to mention. And there's a lot of government involvement too, again. Because GTA's never gone down that route before, or rather it's never accepted that it wasn't going to get any better than Mike Torino. So yeah, government agents. They're jockey, and they like to intimidate people a lot. Woo! Never mind. Story is notably relegated to second place here, with top spot taken to the relationship between the three characters and all the stuff they can do. Fitting enough in a GTA game that's about GTA. GTA 5 kind of goofs off quite a bit, which is sort of welcome, but there's another side that thinks that the three main characters, all of whom are absolutely brilliant and make for the most naturalistic, at least in a GTA universe sense, protagonists that the series has ever had, could have handled something heftier. But GTA 5 doesn't really seem to have many aspirations towards that sort of thing. In many ways, the game is reaching back all the way to GTA 3 and further, with the reintroduction of long-gone aspects of the gameplay, more emphasis on collectibles, adrenaline pills in the form of a special ability meter that differs based on character, and even kill frenzies. It does this while also providing incredibly varied, complex and engrossing missions. Again, the switch ability comes massively into play here. In heists, it's unbelievable, as you seamlessly move from firing a tear gas canister into the vents of a building with Franklin to taking all the jewellery with Michael. Or one person rappels on a building, while the other covers them with sniper fire. There are moments where you're basically forced into switching, of course, and they're good too, but in actuality the best uses of the switch are the more mundane things, such as choosing whether you want to drive or if you want to shoot, and switching seamlessly between them as and when you need to. Missions can just play out so differently each time depending on the role you take. Even in something like a shootout, the feel of switching from one character behind cover to another right as they're shooting back makes for serious cinematic goodness. Shootouts have always been a typical GTA thing, but here they just nailed to a ridiculous degree, and the more you play, the more you realise that the Switch is a game changer for the whole series, something that kicks things up massively, one of the best and most innovative mechanics that Rockstar have created in their flagship series for a long time. It raises some questions. How will the Switch be retained in the future? Is every GTA game from here on out going to feature more than one protagonist? Because surely they can't create something this good and then just drop it for the next game. Or maybe there'll be something else, who knows. On the whole, just about every mission that I've played in GTA 5 was absolutely first rate, and I wanted to play them again and again. Seriously, they're masterful. The incredibly detailed and totally repetitive handholding that defined GTA 4 is gone. Take this little mission here, for example. I have to steal a submarine, and that's all the direction I get. The obvious choice is to just storm the shit out of that boat, kill a load of people and then drop it into the water using a crane. But no, actually, I can go up this little structure here with a sniper rifle and shoot off the ropes that hold the sub, dropping it safely into the water and allowing me to swim to it without hurting a soul or barely alerting anyone. Nice, sir. There's the odd touch of surrealism, almost taken from Saints Row, such as when Michael goes on a pretty bad trip and finds himself flying above the city in one hell of a dream sequence. And there's the rather nasty missions too. I'm not sure if any other mission makes you feel as ugly as the one where you switch to Trevor and torture someone in all kinds of ways in order to feed information to Michael so he can snipe someone. It makes you feel utterly unclean, and that is perhaps appropriate. And it does more to advance the idea of GTA 5's humdrum bureau antagonists being vile pieces of shit than any cutscene ever could. The thing about so many of these missions though is the level of choice you have to play around with them in order to achieve the goal. It's really special, something that was totally missing from GTA 4 and we wondered if it would actually come back. And here it does, in a very big way. And it's even easier than ever to repeat all of them. Oh, and there's another brand new touch too. A soundtrack. No, I mean an actual soundtrack in the missions and everything. Weirdly, GTA has pretty much never had this aside from whatever's on the radio, but they enlisted no less a bunch of figures than legendary German crap rock electronic group Tangerine Dream to provide the goods. It's bold, but in the end it actually does work out very well indeed. Gameplay wise, a lot of GTA 5 is naturally what you've come to expect, always. Not much has changed since the last game, it's all just a lot sleeker now. Driving is perhaps more notable than shooting. The cars don't feel as heavy as they did in GTA 4, and while not totally going back to the old school San Andreas responsiveness, they feel weighty but not too much, and in the end driving around is pretty fun actually. Shooting itself is largely the same as it was on GTA 4, only with a little flash whenever you kill folk, and a Saints Row style ability to zoom in right over the shoulder. Plus there's a whole load more weapons, including the return of a variety of melee weapons. Yes, including the golf club. How could you not have the golf club? Cops are now smarter and tougher to avoid than ever. Compared to GTA 4 when they gave up on you about 10 seconds after you left their radius, you'll now have to spend a good minute or so hiding from their sight to get away from them. This is good in a way because it means that big chasers have become a challenge again, and you don't need to work for them in order to artificially increase their length, although constantly having to go stealth can be frustrating. It's just about the only way because they're really freaking tenacious. They'll have your tyres, your car, and then they'll have you. And as for exploration, well, holy shit, this place is huge. Rockstar boasts that GTA 5 is bigger than the worlds of San Andreas, Red Dead Redemption and GTA 4 combined, and they're not kidding. Much like GTA 4 was, this is a revamped version of Los Santos that has little in common with what we saw in San Andreas. It's more a recreation of Los Angeles and its surrounding areas. And of course there is still that glorious huge mountain waiting for you. Much like in San Andreas, the real star of the show is the countryside and the hellish little towns that occupy it. Beautiful, expansive, full of mystery, full of places to ride up. It's perhaps the best sandbox world of them all, and certainly nothing springs to mind that even comes close to GTA 5's achievement on this front. It'll take you a hell of a long time to see everything, that's for sure, especially considering that there's a bunch of sea surrounding the place, and much like in San Andreas you can dive underwater. The already mentioned submarine comes pretty freaking handy here. It'll provide hours of Das Boot style claustrophobic fun. And just like in San Andreas, each of the 3 characters has stats they can level up to boot, making all the side stuff or even spending a bit of time on the shooting range kinda worthwhile. A lot of the other additions are taken from other recent Rockstar titles. Red Dead Redemption, and to be fair, Saints Row, which kind of introduced this in the first place, in particular has a massive influence here, with GTA finally getting some weapon wheels and a radio wheel, doing away with flicking through the inventory from left to right as you once did. Also from Red Dead you get a whole load of random events in the gameplay, being stopped by someone in the street, helping a couple of aspiring entrepreneurs get away from a stick-up and so forth. And hell, there's tons more from Red Dead, what with it being the best sandbox game ever and all that should be expected. The GTA world is now absolutely full of wildlife, everything from cats and dogs in the city to a whole bunch of deer and even dangerous cougars and the like out in the country. And, again from Red Dead, where you could walk around tipping your cowboy hat to everyone, in GTA you can also greet everyone you see. Trevor in particular is truly the friendliest of them all, and his greetings could warm the hearts of anyone.
Oh, please, just take a bath, will you? Brainless fool. Why, oh why do you exist? Why hasn't someone sensible shot you yet? Twat! You asshole! I've trodden shits with more brains. You look like a cunt. You depressing afterthought. We all know you're a twat. You're a big hunk of love, aren't you? A massive, blubbery ball of hot, sexy, chubby lust. Hey, pork chop, how's it going? Whatever. I said, how's it going, pork chop? You pile of sick! For the love of all that's holy!
No count asshole.
Did I mention that Trevor is the most fun protagonist to play as in the entire history of GTA? Well, if I didn't, then I have now.
Well, that's not very friendly, is it?
The shooting action in general feels a lot smoother than it did in GTA 4 and takes quite a few cues from Max Payne 3, even if it doesn't go into full-on John Woo mode. And like in San Andreas, there are tons of side activities. Every character has something that they really enjoy doing in particular. Michael's main activities are much more laid back. You can play tennis. You can go for a relaxing round of golf. This is all well and good, even if Michael does tend to be a bit of a bad loser. Trevor, on the other hand, yeah, he likes to go out on the randan. As I just mentioned, kill frenzies have returned in the form of Trevor's rampages, where he goes out and murders anything that moves. Franklin has a mixture of stuff he can do, from GTA classics like acquiring certain cars and what have you, to a bunch of assassination missions for Lester. And yes, there's the option to hang out with much the same activities as there were in GTA 4, only this time it's only you who can make the call to hang out with someone. As one of the two people who actually liked hanging out in GTA 4, I'm not such a fan of this change. As insistent as it could be, I liked the idea of characters actively wanting to hang out with you outside of missions. Occasionally it gave you the chance to break off from missions or mayhem for a bit, have a little character development, get drunk and so forth. All of that's still there of course, but if it's just you who's in charge of doing it, then chances are for the most part you probably aren't going to bother with it at all. And in a highly welcome addition from Vice City, you can get yourself a big commercial property portfolio, using all that heist money to buy up half of Los Santos, everything from bars to airfields to a freaking golf course. Little things like the TV are back too, with the Republican Space Rangers and whatever. Yeah, still not funny. But you can now smoke while watching the TV. Actually, I don't know if it's just me, but GTA 5 seems to make a lot less of the whole satire thing than GTA 4 did. There's quite a lot of it in missions, but it makes more sense there. Walking through the Life Invader offices is pretty damn hilarious, it has to be said. It's certainly there, there's tons of satire, but it's not constantly hitting you full in the face with commercials and the like. It's just there if you want it. I mean, I can just happily go to the radio wheel and find a station that's playing a decent song, preferably Big Log by Robert Plant, whenever the hideously unfunny Weasel News comes on. Still, even time-wasting stuff like browsing the internet, on your phone this time, comes with stuff that makes it more connected to what you're actually doing, like checking your Life Invader profile or trying to make tons of money on the stock exchange. And as for the radio, dear God it's huge. Just so many songs, a good couple of hundred or so. With the addition of a soundtrack for missions, the radio does have less of an impact on the narrative than it used to have previously, when it felt like the radio was a big soundtrack for your journey. This time it just becomes a cool bunch of songs to listen to, which is perfectly fine. A wonderful mix of classic rock goodness, West Coast hip hop classics, an awesome station of poppy pleasures and other assorted gems, some country, some gutter punk and whatnot. All this stuff and it's all so good. What's tough to really focus on is just where GTA 5 all comes together. It's a very laid back affair that in a sense is based on celebrating just about everything good that the series has ever done. It plays out like a greatest hits album, each addition to the gameplay striking another familiar chord. This also means that in a sense, despite all the success, this is one of the least essential GTAs of them all. For once the series for the most part isn't trying to do anything new at all, the three characters aside. For fans of the series, it's obviously a goldmine, but it even struck a chord with me, despite coming to this having covered every other GTA game beforehand, playing this for the first time right now. There could have been a very real chance of burnout affecting how I reviewed GTA 5, or even the impression that it made on me, but it didn't happen. GTA 5 is a full-on celebration of everything about the series in many ways, from the flat-out great parts to the thoroughly problematic and shady parts. And yeah, make no mistake, this game is bowling shoe ugly at points, gets quite close to the bone, and there's some stuff in it that's flat-out disgusting, just like every other GTA game. And those who have problems with that, they were perfectly understandable. Those that complained about it being just a bunch of dudes at the end of the day were also well within their right to do so. It's still a game that mostly punches down and what have you. It knows that, of course. And in GTA 5, Rockstar essentially put everything that they'd ever done, good, bad, with the series into one single game, warts and all. And it's brilliant. It's honestly bloody brilliant. I didn't really know what to expect coming in, but what I got is something that's right up there with San Andreas. Absolutely one of my favourite games in the whole series. Honestly, I loved it, and I'm still loving it. And yes, it puts Rockstar firmly in that position again. They're the kings of the sandbox genre, and everyone else is still just following along, same as it ever was. GTA 5 is one of the best, most unforgettable parties in the history of video games, because in the end, that's pretty much what it is, a big old party. So what else is there? There's a little bit more actually. Truth is, I waited a fuck of a long time to play GTA 5 because I wanted to play it on PC, so that's the version you're seeing here. It's the same version that ended up coming out on the PS4 and Xbox One too, an enhanced version of the original 360 game. It doesn't run totally smoothly for me, especially considering that I'm recording it as well, but it's a good 25 FPS or so, which is fine by me, and a fair bit more when I'm not capping it. This is good, seeing as basically every other PC port of a GTA game has largely been an unoptimised pile of shit. This version features a bunch of additions, all the DLC that ended up coming out for the game, although nothing on the scale of GTA 4's DLC, and the really cool addition of a first-person mode. Holy shit, a GTA game in first person, at long last. Does it work? Sort of. Naturally, first person helps the shooting more than anything, what with iron sights and so forth. Driving in first person can sometimes be kind of awkward. Depending on what you're driving, you can struggle a bit with spatial awareness and end up crashing into everything without actually meaning to. On foot it's kind of okay enough, although a bit clumsy. Still, the end result isn't a massive barrage of motion sickness, and for a game that was never really designed to be played in first person, it's not bad at all. Naturally, the game is also incredibly pretty, even if like me you're quite a ways away from max settings. There's 4K support too, if you so happen to want a bit of GTA 4 in your downtime away from changing the weather system on your ultra mega cray supercomputer or whatever. And tons more radio, tons more cars, tons more weapons, and so much customization, another thing that's making a return. The characters don't get thin or fat this time, but they can get haircuts, tattoos, plenty of clothes, additions and customizations for guns and cars. You can pimp them any way you want to. Nothing like a hot pink shotgun to really hammer those blows home, right? And of course there's the online mode, which is the other big thing here. Online, from what I've experienced of it, is sort of like what it was in GTA 4, only this time the base for online is the free mode, where you can do what the hell you like and make your way towards various jobs, usually ones that have been created by other people. It's more than just a simple matter of going to a menu and choosing what mode you want. And you can roll with a crew too, carrying out jobs together and stuff, which is kind of MMO-y and certainly helps give the good old free mode a strong base, even though all the usual pissing about in GTA is still very much present and correct. The jobs come with a whole load of special cutscenes too, featuring characters from the original game. And your character themselves can be customised out the arse. You even have the option to give them some rather interesting parentage. The online has been boosted somewhat recently with the addition of heists as well. Much like in the original game, you get them from Leicester, you have to do a whole bunch of shit with your crew in preparation for the heist, and then you go ahead and carry it out. Your characters online may not necessarily talk much, obviously they're related to Claude more than anyone else, but Leicester and company will certainly handle most of the talking. So yeah, the online mode is certainly something, although it's also apparently a little buggy, the loading times can be outrageous, and sometimes you'll just get disconnected without warning. I can see the appeal of it and why it would be so addicting, even if in all honesty it's not really for me and I'd rather stick to screwing about in the single player. I had enough of GTA's online communities back when I was playing GTA 4, I'm afraid. So, there it is. We've done Grand Theft Auto, another ridiculous project in the books. The question, I guess, is where does the series go from here? One part of me wouldn't mind at all if GTA 5 ended up being the last GTA game. In many ways it feels like enough of a celebration to actually be a full stop, for Rockstar to leave it at that because honestly they don't have anything left to prove here. That could be one road, naturally. Although, obviously the series is far too big for that. It's the biggest series in all of video games, and as long as video games are still any kind of a thing, there'll always be GTA. As I said previously, a GTA game does feel like a State of the Union address for mainstream gaming, a summary of where everything's at. GTA 5, as gloriously, wonderfully and all the other superlatives, bloated as it is still bloated, which is an accusation you could throw at mainstream gaming in general. It's just that GTA 5's awkwardness tends to be a hell of a lot more fun. And yes, there are aspects to the series, the silly frat boy humour and the childish attempts at being offensive, that always date the game a little and make it seem like it's from a different time, and frankly the game doesn't need it at all nowadays. A lot of this takes a back step in GTA 5, but it's still there, and when it pops up it's still embarrassing, even if it's only a nitpick. As always, Rockstar have the formulas and tropes down absolutely pat to an intricate science, but the actual content doesn't always match up. So where could a GTA 6 go, aside from Vice City again that is? Lots of people have suggested having a female protagonist, which would certainly be awesome in a sense, although other shit actually has to back that up in that it's just got to be bigger and better and all that other stuff people expect, and innovative, naturally. Because really, another one through of GTA's greatest hits might not be all that welcome. Which is the rather amusing little problem Rockstar may have. GTA 5 is a history of the series in and of itself, and it kind of means that next time around they have to innovate and do something completely unexpected. Otherwise folks might just get bored and GTA would just become something woke like Battlefield is or whatever. And at that point they may as well just start releasing new GTA games annually. We're far from that point. The release of a GTA game is still a special event in a way that the release of a Call of Duty is not. But Rockstar need to keep up the pace to keep things that way. It's hard to see just where the series can go from GTA 5, but then I'm not the person who gets paid a bunch of money to decide where GTA goes. I'm just the silly moo who takes a look back at all of them, documenting them all for my personal amusement and, possibly, though not likely, your entertainment. And doing that has certainly been fun. Of all the big retrospectives I've done, this is the one I've spent the most time playing games for. The footage you see is the result of what must be well over 100, 200 hours spread across all the games, and that's with all that other life shit I have to do and whatnot. And yet playing GTA never got old. The simple acts as often as you do them, those core things that have been in place in the series since the very beginning, just never stop being brilliant. Whether it's a shootout, a chase, or just a bloody good drive. Even coming into the final game blind, with every other GTA game in the books beforehand, still ended up being a total joy that was worth waiting the extra time for. Hell, I'm not sure if I'd have loved GTA 5 as much if I'd played it in 2013, or if I hadn't ended up preparing for it by covering all the other games. And still, for all the many extras there are in all the games, the thousands of missions and side activities and the like, it all comes down to the feeling you get on a 4-star wanted level, being chased by the cops on the ground and in the air, evading roadblocks, taking pot shots and either giving them the slip or going down, wasted in a blaze of glory. This simple act is Rockstar's main gift to the gaming world, something that is truly at the heart of video games, as close to it as the bip boop heartbeat on those old pong machines or the plumber in pursuit of the mushroom. That's where the classic Grand Theft Auto chase is at, whether you're drenched in 80s neon, choking on 90s Los Santos smog, rolling through an inch-perfect Times Square, or moving crude shapes on an even cruder top-down map. And if that was all the series had ever had, it would still be amazing. Naturally, everything else kind of takes it over the edge. Again, just like the song goes, with GTA, you're always into something. And with that, it's perhaps time to draw a line on the whole thing. Thank you very much for watching, stay safe, call up the boys, and go for a joyride.